Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas, and it is time to talk Resident Evil Requiem once again. What do you expect? It's the biggest reveal of the year so far. Since we first heard about Resident Evil 9, or Requiem as it's now known, coming onto the scene, people wondered, is it going to be first person or is it going to be third person? And with the introduction of Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, we went into that first person view, and a lot of people were put off by that, thinking, oh, that doesn't feel like Resident Evil, that doesn't seem like Resident Evil, but in actual fact, it turned out really, really great, and I enjoyed it, and so did millions of others. It worked so well that they even went into first-person mode with Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil Village, and people got the impression that this whole era could be a trilogy, Resident Evil 7, 8 and 9, and saying that Resident Evil 9 or Requiem could be first-person as well. Well, I am here today to tell you that it is confirmed that Resident Evil Requiem will indeed be first-person. It'll also be third-person as well. Yes, that's right. They are going to have the option to switch between first and third person view. And it's kind of what happened in the end with Resident Evil Village, because the game started off as first person, but eventually by the time you got to the end, they've done all this added stuff in packs, updates, patches, whatever. You could play first or third person, but you never really got to see Ethan's face whenever you were playing in third person view. I guess they always hid that for whatever reason. But now that it is confirmed that Resident Evil Requiem will indeed be first person and third person, it begs a couple of questions. My first question is, which one will be more immersive? And what do you think my answer would be? Well, quite frankly, I think first person. I think that would be more immersive. The next question would be, can we change it on the fly? Can we quickly switch from one to the other really quick? Well, first indications don't seem to be the case. It may seem like it's a bit of a clumsy way of changing from first person to third person, but it definitely seems to be there. This was confirmed by IGN, who have managed to get their hands on an actual playable version of Resident Evil Requiem. And if you want to have a go look at that IGN article, I'll put it in the pinned comment or something like that. You can go and read it that way. The next question I want to talk about is VR. Now, because it's going to go into first person, obviously third person as well, if it were in first person view, does that mean that we could get a VR experience straight off the bat? Do we think we could just plug in our VR2 headset and just play Resident Evil Requiem in first person on VR? I think that is a possibility, but I don't think it's something Capcom will do straight away. I get the feeling it'll be added in as some kind of, not a DLC, but definitely some kind of patch later on in the cycle of Resident Evil Requiem. And that's a good idea. I don't think they should be doing VR straight away. I know we all can see VR as a bit of a failure when it comes to VR2, especially VR2, but the first VR from PlayStation was good, it was okay. But I'm not saying that VR is a fad, because I don't think it's necessarily a fad, but it comes in waves and it's kind of died down in popularity, much in the same way as something like 3D has died down in popularity. These things come and go in cycles. And could it be that Resident Evil Requiem could really boost VR2 for Sony? It's an option. Could Sony put some money into it and say, hey Capcom, here's some money, make this VR pretty much a month after we've released it and get people to buy VR. Let's put the VR on sale and let's see if we can boost sales that way. It could happen, but I think it's doubtful. Now, in terms of what having a game as first person and third person brings to the table, is it brings in a lot of people who preferred third person Resident Evil, and it also brings in people who liked the first person Resident Evil. For me, I don't really care. I just love Resident Evil. I love the story. It looked gorgeous as well. The trailer, oh my god, the trailers we've seen, absolutely fantastic. But I feel it's going to warrant two playthroughs. One in first person and one in third person. And I think that is the only real way that we're going to get a true immersive feeling from Resident Evil Requiem. If you play it in third person and third person only, that's fine. I guess it brings the old school Resident Evil, well, I say old school, but Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, those sort of games. And if you play in first person, it definitely brings the vibes of Resident Evil 7 and 8. And I think that having that option is just great. Like, seriously, No other game can kind of bring to the table an awesome first person and third person view in a game like Resident Evil. And I know what you're going to say, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, okay, fine. But you know what? Have you played Resident Evil Village in first person and third person? I have, and it is amazing. Seriously, when you play it for the first time in first person, great, fantastic, it's awesome, but then switch to third person, it feels like a completely different game. Whereas if you play something like Fallout and you can switch between first and third person, it just feels like the same game, you're just changing perspective. It's that amazing ability that Capcom has in Resident Evil Village that truly makes it feel like a new game, and I'm hoping that is the same for Resident Evil Requiem. The last thing I want to say on it is I do hope that there is ability in-game to switch, no matter how clunky it is. I don't want to be locked in to a perspective from the start of the game and have to stick to that perspective all through the game, because there may be areas that feel much better when you're playing in third person, and there may be other areas better in first person, especially when you're in a refined kind of corridor and you want to focus on everything. You're much better in a first person view. And that ability to switch is something that Capcom really does need to put in the game on the fly, not something to set at the beginning. I think that might put a lot of people off. Maybe they end up patching it in later on. Who knows? But to have both first and third person view in Resident Evil Requiem from day one is an absolute win in my book. Just imagine how awesome it's going to look in first person when you look around. I mean, the RE engine itself is an amazing, it's fantastic, it's unbelievable, you know, it's so refined, so polished, and it creates awesome looking games. So imagine how good things are going to look in first person. Just, I cannot wait for that. I know there is a lot of controversy when it comes to the first person Resident Evil, because many old school fans didn't like it. And then you have the new Resident Evil fans who kind of got into Resident Evil in the last 10 years and know it as a first person sort of game. So there's going to be conflict one way or the other amongst fans of Resident Evil. So I would love to hear from those who think that the first person is better or third person is better. Leave in the comments below what you intend to play Resident Evil Requiem as on your very first playthrough. I suspect there are going to be more people who want to play it in first person than third person, but I guarantee there are still people out there, millions of people who do want to play as third person on the first go. Me personally, I'm going to go third person on my first playthrough, I think, just because of Resident Evil 4 Remake. That felt so good in third person, just absolutely unbelievable. And obviously that ended up being, you know, we can play Resident Evil 4 in VR, so I've no doubt in my mind that we'll see VR in Resident Evil Requiem. But please do let me know what you think of all of this, about the mode changes in perspective in Resident Evil Requiem. Is it good? Is it bad? Should they have just stuck to their roots and stuck with that third person view all the time? Or are you happy with the ability to pick whichever one you want? Do you also want to see VR in it? I personally really would love to see Resident Evil Requiem as VR. I think that would just be an absolute bonus for everybody who has VR. Let's face it, even if you play it on PC or whatever, I think that is just an absolute bonus to have. So please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. There will be some videos hanging around on the screen now if you fancy clicking any of those. I've made a couple of videos on Resident Evil Requiem so far, if I could even pronounce it right. Subscribe button down below and click notifications if you fancy it. Hopefully I will see you in another one of my videos, but until then, thank you very much for watching and take care.